Hello, I'm Michael Topham, technical writer for digital photo, and welcome to this first of two video lessons that's going to focus on layer masks and show you how powerful a tool they really are in your Photoshop editing software. Layer masks have to be one of the most invaluable tools on offer inside the Layers palette. They allow you to fine-tune any previous adjustments that you might have made and can also be used to show, hide or change the opacity of any area in a layer at your heart's content. In this video lesson, we're going to take a look at the basics of layer masks to fully understand how they work and how we can use them to our full advantage. They're really not as complicated as they may sound, and once you've mastered the theory behind layer masks, you'll be surprised how much you'll use them day in, day out in your editing software and wonder how you ever worked without them. So before we use layer masks at their full potential in a real image, I've set up this simple document on my screen which will show the process of how a layer mask works very clearly. We can see that my document is comprised of two layers in my layers palette on the right hand side. We have a background layer that has a blue square on it, and then we have another layer sitting above that, layer number 1, which has a red square on it. To start off, we're going to go down to the bottom of the layers palette and click on the icon that has a rectangle with a circle in it. This is the Add Layer Mask icon, and as you click it, you'll see a new thumbnail pops up in the layers palette alongside layer number 1. This is what is known as your layer mask thumbnail. It's very important that whenever we're going to use a layer mask, that the layer mask thumbnail that we've just created is highlighted, just like it is at the moment, with this thin rectangular border around it, meaning that it's active and it's ready to be used. So we've added our first new layer mask, but how are we going to use it? Well, it's a very simple procedure. It involves painting with black, white or shades of grey into this layer mask, most commonly with the brush tool that can be found in Photoshop's toolbox near the top. Once you've selected on your brush tool from the toolbox, head up into the options bar so that we can correctly set up the type of brush that we want to use in our layer mask. We can set the size and hardness of our brush by clicking here, and then moving across on the options bar, we need to make sure that the mode is set to normal and both the opacity and the flow are set to 100%. Now we can see that my opacity is actually at 25% at the moment, so I'm just going to increase that back up to 100%. With the brush set up correctly in the options bar, we're now actually ready to paint into our mask. But we're just going to double check again that our layer mask thumbnail is highlighted in the layers palette, which it is, so we will be painting into our mask and not onto the layer itself. When we're using layer masks, remember that if we're going to be painting with black, this will allow us to reveal any layers beneath, and if we paint with white, it ensures that the top layer is visible. To set our black and white foreground and background colour, we do this in the toolbox. At the moment, you can see that my foreground colour is set to black, which is what I'm looking for, but you can easily switch between them by clicking on these little switch arrows just above them. There we go, I've just changed my foreground colour across to white. Or if you want to be really quick at this, you can do it by just hitting the keyboard shortcut, which is the X key on your keyboard. I'm just going to brush through the red box on my screen with my foreground colour set to black, and you'll see that something very interesting is about to happen. The background layer is now actually starting to show through the layer above it, and this is because we painted with a black brush straight down the red square. Remember that the pure black will always allow us to show through 100% of the layer below. You may have also noticed that a black line has appeared in the layer mask thumbnail on the right hand side, but this is nothing to worry about, as this is just simply showing us where we have painted with our black brush. You can actually view this layer mask at a larger size at any time if you so wish, and to do this just hold down Alt on your keyboard and actually just click on the layer mask thumbnail. Now by doing this, we can see that the area around our painted black line is still showing as white. Therefore, it's showing the layer that it's still attached to. To get back to our original view, just hold down Alt on the keyboard again, and then just click on the layer mask thumbnail. If we just have a think back at the black line that we painted through our image before, we had our opacity set to a maximum 100%, meaning it was going to allow through 100% of the background layer. But where layer masks get really interesting is where we experiment with the opacity in our options bar, making sure that our layer mask thumbnail is still highlighted in the layers palette and that my foreground colour is still set to black in my toolbox. I'm going to paint another line down this red square, but this time I'm going to set my opacity to 50%, and to do that we just move up to the options bar, click this little arrow here and just move the slider down slightly, and I'm just going to choose 50%. This basically means I'm going to be painting with grey into my mask, and as I paint the line this time, it's appearing differently to the line that we previously painted at 100%. What's actually happening is we're allowing some of the blue to show through from the background layer, but we're also seeing some of the red from the layer 1. So in other words, we're seeing 50% of either colour. If I go up to my options bar and actually drop down my opacity a little more, down to say 20%, and then draw another line through my red square, like so, you can see that although some of the blue square is being allowed to show through, there's much less than the red square. This is because there's an 80-20% split in favour of the red square. Don't think that we're limited to painting with just black into our layer mask though. As I briefly mentioned earlier, you can also paint with white into your mask, and by doing this, you'll paint back any of the pixels of the layer that the layer mask is actually attached to. Let's take a look at how this works. I'm going to change my black foreground colour in my layers palette to white, and you can do this very quickly by pressing X on the keyboard, or just hit these little switch arrows. So I'm just going to click those, and then I'm just going to go back up to my options bar and increase my opacity right back up to 100%. As I paint onto my mask with these settings, you can begin to see that I'm actually painting back the pixels of layer 1 at 100% and taking away the areas that we originally allowed to show through. So I'm just going to brush through my red square like so with my white brush, and there we go. We're actually removing all those areas that we allowed to show through from before. And this is what layer masks are all about. They give you fantastic control of revealing or concealing different areas in a layer, and it's the ideal tool to use if you're looking to combine two images into one, or create a busy montage scene. On the second layer mask video lesson, we'll be putting them to work with two images that we want to combine into one. But it's not going to be an easy task. So whether you're a layer mask beginner who fancies a challenge, or a masking genius, you'll definitely want to open up the two start images that can be found on the CD and try the technique for yourself. That's the end of this video lesson, but I'll hopefully see you in the second layer mask video very soon.